The mystery of Consignment 709. Most loads have a name. Steel, timber, refrigerated beef. You know the weight, you know the center of gravity, and you know how it will behave when you take a corner at 40 miles per hour. But for Julian, a veteran of the transcontinental routes, his final load had no name. It was simply Consignment 709. It was a black, seamless box for meters long, fused to the center of his trailer. No manifest, no customs declaration, just a specialized military-grade seal and a digital timer mounted to his dashboard. The instructions were absolute. You must cover a minimum of 70 kilometers every hour. No exceptions. Julian didn't ask why. He just watched the timer reset to 60:00 and felt the weight of the road begin. By the time Julian reached the Swiss border, he understood the trap. This wasn't a speed limit. It was a quota. If he hit traffic, he was in trouble. If he stopped for fuel, he had to make up the time by pushing the engine to its limit. But then, the box began to speak, not in words, but in a frequency that sat at the base of his skull. It was a low-frequency hum that made the glass of his windshield vibrate. He noticed that as long as he kept his pace above the 70-kilometer-per-hour average, the hum was steady. But the moment he touched the brakes for a steep descent, the hum turned into a low, predatory growl. On the third night, near the port Calais, the world disappeared. A fog descended that felt like wet wool. Visibility dropped to zero. Julian was forced to slow down to a crawl. He looked at the dashboard. 48 minutes had passed. He had only covered 54 kilometers. He was 16 kilometers short of his quota, with only 12 minutes left on the clock. It was a mathematical impossibility. As the timer ticked toward the red zone, the box reacted to the debt. Something shifted. Then again. The truck swayed on the slick road, as if something inside the steel was throwing its weight against the walls. Julian pulled into a lay-by, his heart hammering. He stood by the trailer doors in the freezing fog, listening. From inside the box, he heard a sound that didn't belong in logistics. He heard a rhythmic, intentional knock back. Julian didn't wait for the timer to hit zero. He drove. He drove through the fog like a blind man, pushing the truck until the tires screamed. He arrived at a nameless airfield in England with only seconds to spare. He was met by men who didn't look like warehouse workers. They wore hazmat suits and spoke in hushed, urgent tones. As the hydraulic lift began to move the box, Julian caught a glimpse of the underside. There were no bolts. The box hadn't been loaded. It had been grown into the trailer. One of the men looked at Julian's sweating face and said, "You're lucky, driver. Most men slow down when the scratching starts. If you hadn't hit your distance, the containment field would have failed, and you would have been the first thing it ate." Julian was paid a sum of money that meant he never had to drive again. But the money stays in a bank account he never touches. Every night, when he closes his eyes, he doesn't hear the wind. He hears that rhythmic thud from Consignment 709. He realized too late that he wasn't just a driver. He was a keeper of secrets. The road gives us many things: freedom, money, stories. But sometimes it gives us a weight that we carry until the day we die.